Hi folks, Tim here and welcome back to Elmendorf Acres. Well, today we've got a fun project and one that I'm doing just kind of to have some fun and to switch things up with my saws a little bit. We are putting West Coast handles on our Husqvarna 562. So this is what many of us are used to. It's a regular handle that come across the top. Again, this is on my Husqvarna 562. I've got a bunch of saws and I've always wanted to switch over to a West Coast handle just on one of them, just to have something different. And well, if any of you know me, you know I like some different stuff once in a while. So this is the handle that comes on most of your 562s. Yeah. This is your West Coast handle. And you can see they are very different. This part here wraps over this side of the saw. So what we're going to do today is a video on how to replace your regular handle with a West Coast handle. And they make a kit. You can see your dealer to get this kit. And they tell me it goes in real easy, so we're gonna find out. Okay, so we're here in our small engine room today, and some of you are probably really gonna appreciate this. My ugly mug is not in front of the camera very much, but we're gonna do some work on the saw. So this is the kit. That handle came with it, right? This handle, I've already got that over here sitting on my toolbox just so I don't lose it. And I laid out some of the parts that came with it. We've got some smaller screws, some smaller nuts, some dogs, and a little instruction booklet that comes with it. So we're going to see if we can figure this out. We got a few different things here, and some of the parts on this are reusable, so you want to save some of the parts. And if you're anything like me, you're going to mark this handle and put it off to the side, because the chances of us smashing a part on a saw is always there. So one of the things it likes us to do is we're going to be removing this plate cover here. And I've always got all kinds of tools right here in the shop with me. And again, this is our small engine room. So this is where most of the stuff for our saws and our weed whackers is placed. This is where most of our parts for those are. And we've got it set up just for that. It's a tiny bench, but it's one that I can fit a saw on and be able to work. So I've definitely seen some hours, definitely a little dirty. So before that all goes back together, we'll be cleaning that. But we'll be taking the bar and the chain off because we want to replace the dogs while we're doing this. Comes with the dogs, let's do that. So on this saw, I'm running a 20-inch bar. And one of the things we want to do is we want to actually replace that right there. So we're going to take that one out. Look at that, that one's already loose. And we're going to end up replacing it with this one. And you can see that's a little more aggressive. So that seems like a nice upgrade. I'm looking forward to trying that one out. So like I was saying, we've worked over the last probably 6 months, 6 or 7 months over the winter. Once we were done with leaves for the year. And we tried to make this a little more, I guess, user-friendly as far as a garage goes. We did a lot of cleaning and really tried to kind of make a difference as far as just being user-friendly. And that was when we built this small bench back here. We always had the main bench out in the garage, but that was always loaded with stuff, and it still is. And this one builds up with stuff too. But this is where we charge the batteries for some of that Ego gear that we have, and is where we charge our DeWalt batteries along with our Milwaukee batteries. So I guess just snug those down. I'm actually going to use, I got the T-wrench that has that star drive on it, that Torx head on it, and just tighten a little bit. All right, so we took this off already, and we're going to now take off our handle. All right. One of the things I forgot to do is you actually need to put there's a little spinner that goes on that, believe it or not. So we'll put that on there. And again, be careful with these screws. You don't really want to lose them. We've got this here. That goes in, just like that. And we have a longer that goes through, like so. Excuse me. And then we've got a little nut on this side. And they're saying that just goes like that. All right, so this side's a hex key, which we already have. It's the common size that goes with most of our saw stuff. And the nut on this side is an 8mm. So we'll just tighten this down. And I'm using a ratchet because that's what was handily available to me here. But we tighten that down nice. And that still spins. Great. One of the things I've learned is keeping a neat work area helps things go smoother in the long run. So it's something to think about. So this is now attached. We've taken out 2 screws here. Let's see what we have in here. Got one we got to take out of here. There we are. And most of the stuff is torqued, but not horrible. I'm able to break it free with a regular screwdriver with a Torx bit. And not the, I don't really need the T-wrench for it. I want to be careful with this one, that's in here. So once we get the other side, we can release it. And you just want to catch that screw, or at least make sure it doesn't fall on the floor or on the dirt if that's where you're working. You know, I do a lot of stuff in the gravel, and I tend to lose way too many nuts and bolts and screws if that's the case. So it's been a nice transition to be able to now work here inside a little bit. Been good for all of us, I think. Definitely good for some of my sanity. And try to pay attention to where your bolts come out of, because they are different lengths. So your bottom ones for this handle are shorter than the ones that were on the side. So just something to pay attention to when you're doing this work. It's something that you want to make sure that, again, just pay attention a little bit. It just pops out. Paying a little bit of attention goes a long way. So this should just fit right over top. Takes a little finagling to get it in there, but it'll go. Just be patient with it. As with so many things, a little bit of patience and just wiggle things around a little bit till they fit nicely. That's all. Now that we've done this, we just need to pry this out here a little bit. Just pops out like that, nice and simple. Boop. Probably best to use a screwdriver, not a knife, but sometimes I don't listen to directions well. Ask many people, they will tell you that. Tim doesn't always listen to directions well. All right, so this has the screw in it already, which is nice. And when you do put this back together, you want to make sure that you've got this little strap right here. You want to make sure that that is still in there and still attached. That's very important. Let me show you this here. So we're doing all this work. See how that pops out? You don't want that to be loose because that's what helps tie this together. See? And that makes it so it can't go any further than what that strap has it set at. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to put one of these screws in now, just because it's going to help me keep things where they need to be. I'm hoping that's the case, at least. I'm not even going to put it in all the way, just enough to hold things there for a moment as we make other adjustments, because there are other adjustments that do need to be made here. Now, let's look at this bottom here. See, now that's lining up pretty good. There we are. Look at it, clicked right in. Beautiful. So what we'll do is we're going to take one of the shorter screws. You can see this is a shorter one. And we're just going to add that back to the bottom. Just quickly. And I'm not going to tighten it all the way, but I'll get it to where it's almost snug. That way we can still just move things around and tweak them a little bit as we need to. My next step is going to be to get this spring here, this part right here. We want to get that lined up and in there properly. All right, so that is not a Torx. The kit that this came with is actually an Allen key. I do have that right here. There we are. And as with so many things, take a second, make sure you're not cross-threading. You really don't want to cross-thread anything here. That would be rather unfortunate. It says just torque it down a little bit. I wouldn't go crazy with it. Okay, and now this hooks right in here. It actually goes underneath, which is why I didn't tighten this all the way. Just wanted to kind of hold things where they were. So we'll slip this out again for a moment, and we will get this handle underneath here. Click it in, there we go. It just fits in just like that. Isn't that nice? And I'll just slide this back in. There we are. And again, this top bolt right here has that little strap there. You need to make sure that that is also being reattached when you take that off. This one's going to go right here. And I'm sure you can do this with a power screwdriver or some sort of driver. I don't find it really too tough to just do it with the regular handheld Torx. And now we're going to put this last one in down here. If I can chase things around, there we are. This is where having a magnetic tip helps a lot. Less chance of dropping things and losing things. So you can actually see, before I drive this in all the way, it has a small centering hole right here. And there's a pin from the chassis, basically, if you want to call it the chassis, that goes through the handle. So that helps line things up. And again, we're not going to go insanely tight. I don't want to, you know, put a Torx bit on a ratchet or an impact driver and just really crank this down. So you just kind of go till it feels right. I've gotten very used to using the scrunch, as it's called, with Torx bit on it. And I kind of am comfortable with where I stop on that. So I've learned the feel for that one. There we are. So there's the handle. The handle's on. It's got multiple points of contact. We still have to put this screw in here. And that should be this one right here. Should slide right in there. Oh, that's right. And this again is Allen key for the set, where everything else is the Torx. So slightly different, but it doesn't really seem to affect anything negatively. It seems to work very well. I have a good set of Allen wrenches, the T-handle ones. They're in the large part of the garage. So this works well. And I have a problem with collecting things. It seems that every single saw and every weed whacker, every leaf blower that we buy, I keep every little screwdriver, every scrunch, every little piece. So sometimes that comes in handy, and then sometimes we'll do a purge like we did over the winter and just get rid of a lot of that stuff, because I mean, let's be honest, how many of those little screwdrivers do I really need? And this just goes into the plastic, so you don't want to tighten this a lot, because you will have the potential to strip this screw out right here, okay? So that's also an important part. Now, well, that saw looks different, doesn't it? With that funny little handle. So again, this is something that I've always wanted to do, and the price was right on the upgrade kit, and it's just something that I thought would be a whole lot of fun going forward. One of the things that I realized I just did without explaining was I took this little plastic cover off. Now this dog actually goes on the outside here, and this dog sits on the outside of this cover. I know it looks a little non-traditional, but it won't fit inside the cover, obviously. It's not made for that. So it sits on the outside of the cover, and what we have is there's a little screw that holds this plastic piece on. So we've got two little nuts that go in here. I actually have a cutout for them already. So they just slide right in here. And this is where having fat fingers, as they say, is a little bit difficult. There we are. So that just slides right in there. This particular one's a little dirty, so you want to make sure that anywhere that these two little nuts are going to sit into, it needs to actually seat. And in this case, it has a little bit of sawdust and oil in there that's been built up. So we're gonna just clean that quick, and then this can go in there, just like so. So it sits in really nicely, really nicely. And then again, this just goes on the outside like this. And you want to make sure that you have it the right way, right? This is obviously the wrong way. You don't want it to come out. So you want this to actually sit in. And that will sit in to where this metal piece is flush here. So again, pay attention to what you're doing. You don't want it that way. You want it this way, okay? All right, so this is where having your driver is helpful, because you need to cut through this a little bit. So again, make sure you're putting these on or the way they're supposed to be. Now we're just gonna, there we are. And like I said, it's just a little, it's not hard, it's just hard to hold that nut in place and screw these in at the same time. So that's where your little impact driver set on low is a nice option to have. So again, I highly recommend not going too hard with it. Once that's in there, I don't need the impact driver anymore. I will tighten it the rest of the way with the Allen key that we have here. And it takes a couple seconds more, but it just ensures that we're not stripping anything out, which is important. You don't want to be stripping things out. Again, just hand tight. You don't need to go insanely crazy on this stuff. There we are. So that's putting the dogs on this. We want to remember to put this plastic piece back in here. Very important. It helps keep some of this stuff clean. There we are. And that is just a little smaller Torx. Again, one of the nice things with keeping all of these little parts, or excuse me, all these little tools around, is I tend to have all the tools I need in this small shop to work on my chainsaws and my weed whackers. All right, so that's back on. That's very simple. Let's throw our chain back on and throw our bar back on. And I'm running a Sugihara bar on this, but we try to clean them a couple times a year, probably 3 or 4. So I know the saw guys out there are really going to hate me for that we don't do it more often. However, I do not cut nearly as much wood as a logger or as a big tree company does. This particular saw is kind of my go-to. Sits in the back of the truck, but it's also our firewood saw. And then we set it like this. We just check things. And as you can see, we got a lot of slack there, so we want to bring that up a little bit. And while it's in here, we're going to do a quick sprocket grease. Take the nose of it, push it down a little bit, and then tighten these couple nuts the last little bit of the way. All right, so one of the last things that I'm going to do here today, and this is something that very often gets forgotten in the chainsaw maintenance world. Most sprockets on the saws that I have are greasable. They got a little pinhole right there. So what you want to do, and this is a special tip on our grease gun, right? It's got a little bit of, it's got a pointed tip on the grease gun. Put that in the trash. And you just take that there and give it a shot. A little bit comes out. That will help your sprockets not wear out as fast. And it's a real great idea as far as chainsaw maintenance goes. So a sharp chain is a safe chain. Remember that. And everything's running good. So in another video, we can go over some actual chainsaw maintenance. But the idea of this video was a how-to on transitioning from your regular handle, which all of our saws have. They've all got this style handle to this West Coast handle. Again, I thought it'd be fun. I thought it'd be kind of cool to have one set up like this. And I know there's so many different variants on what the guys think is the right way or the wrong way as far as the old style handle that I had on there versus the West Coast handle. Again, out here, everything comes out like that. And on the West Coast, most of you guys have this style handle. So one of the nice things with this handle is it does give you a different purchase point. You can move it to there. And it's something I don't recommend for a lot of people, but it's something, like I said, it's fun, it's different, something we always wanted to do. And the dealer happened to have this conversion kit there. And it was a very reasonable price, so it's what we chose to do, something that's fun. So that's all for today, folks. Again, this was a tutorial on how to change your Husqvarna 562 from the regular handle to the West Coast handle. Very simple. I think anyone can do it. You don't need to be mechanically inclined to do it. And I gotta say, I really like these dogs that it came with. I've got 2 dogs now instead of 1. This was the size dog that came on this saw. So you can see it's smaller. And now I've got dogs on both sides of the bar. And I do really like dogs on both sides of the bar. So great little kit, fun, easy to install. I think it took me probably a half an hour start to finish to do the whole thing. And that was with, you know, looking at things and figuring it out. I've never done it before. And explaining things and chatting the whole time I was doing it. So thank you for watching. If you enjoy our videos, please make sure to subscribe and share them with your friends. Have a great night.